take time.
Take your coat off so we can see your beard.
Yes, I will.
Ready? Welcome. This is the organizational meeting of the SVSU Board of Directors. This is the first meeting of the SVSU Board following the March elections 2013. This is also the first meeting of the SVSU Board composition after a waiver was approved by the State Board of Education to change the composition from 3 elected members from each of the districts to 2 elected members from each of the districts and an alternate. The alternates will serve when one of the elected members is not able to attend the meeting. So they are not voting members. The alternates are only voting members when an elected representative from the local school district is unable to come and they're serving in their stead. Before we begin, I would like each member of the Supervisory Union Board to introduce themselves and let the viewing audience know which school district each represents. And Dan will actually put the camera on you because we've had much feedback that members who watch the meeting are not sure who's speaking. So we have name tags and cards in front of you, and I'd like you each just to introduce yourselves and say which district you represent. And whether, if you're an alternate, just designate alternate. So shall we start? Larry, would you start?
Larry Johnson, Jasper.
Paul DeLucia, BSD, alternate.
Ken Surratt, BSD.
George Sleeman, BSD.
Sean Marie Oler, Mount Anthony.
Ava Spruce Hurley, Woodford.
Catherine McClure, Superintendent of Schools, in case people don't recognize me. Go ahead, Cindy.
Cindy Brownell Pownell.
Donna Leap, I'm Assistant Superintendent.
Leon Johnson, Mount Anthony.
Fran Kinney, Shasberry.
Jim O'Connor, Pownell. Matthew Patterson, North Bennington.
Ray Molyneux, North Bennington.
Holly O'Brien, Woodford.
Rick Pembroke, Chief Financial Officer of the district.
Thank you. This is the organization meeting, so the floor is open for nominations for chair of the SVSU Board. Are there any nominations?
I'll nominate Sean Marie.
I'll second it.
Are there any other nominations for board chair? Larry?
I'll nominate Fran Kinney.
And I'll second it.
Others? Any other nominations? Okay, we have 2 nominations. Sean Marie Oler, I'm sorry.
Move close
Sean Marie.
nominations.
Second.
Yeah, I was going to do that. Close the nominations. So I will hand out ballots, and you get only the SU representatives will vote.
Who's nominated? Sean and Francis.
Yeah. Jim O'Connor.
Mark's mother. Somebody said Mark's mother.
Working hours and 12, socially proactive.
There were 8 votes for Sean Marie Oler, 3 for Fran Kinney, and 1 abstention or no vote. So those are the results. Sean Marie?
Thank you, and thank you for your confidence. So I thought we had 11 voting members. Oh, no, Avis came, so we have 12. Okay, thank you. Avis is here. I'd like to thank you, and I will open the floor for nominations for the vice chair now.
Cindy Brownell, please.
Is there a second? Leon seconded that. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Move you close nominations.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor of voting for Cindy as vice chair? Abstentions? Noes? Did you get that, Richard? Is it just one? I didn't look across the room. And I'd like to open the floor also for clerk.
Leon Johnson.
Second.
I really would like for someone else to be the clerk.
You do a marvelous
It's gotta
job.
be a volunteer out there somewhere.
Nominate Claude DeLuca. Oh, wait a minute, you're an...
Oh, he's an alternate.
The reason it is often, I do a lot with all the policies. So we want to use as many people as possible in the organization.
Avis, you wanted to be the clerk?
No, I'm sorry, I can't take responsibility.
No more responsibility.
If there's someone else, I'll let them do it. If not, I'll.
All right, well, we'll close nominations for, I don't see any other volunteers, Leon.
No, they're not knocking the doors down.
Okay.
You can nominate.
But no shake up.
Looking at, Holly, no, this is new to you, right? You're right.
Well,
And
we'll
welcome.
We'll take it.
All right, so Leon's been nominated and second. All in favor of Leon as clerk? Any abstentions? Any noes? It is.
Good
You
job,
are the
Leon.
clerk. Thank you. I don't know if you, actually, I know we went around and introduced ourselves, and Dan did the camera, but I would like to especially welcome Jim and Holly as new members to the SU. And Holly's been a long-time Woodford member, so we welcome you to the SU. And Jim, I know you're fairly new to Pownell.
About 4 months now. Not to Pownell, but
To the board. So we have a very full agenda tonight. The next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics. This is not maybe one you've seen at your local board. It is the new Vermont School Board's Vermont Code of Ethics for school board members. It's a little more succinct than the 2-pager that was previously sent around at the beginning of the in March. So, are there any questions on it? We have a signature page. Ray?
I object to some of the language in the preamble. I understand the concept, but I don't like the way they stated it in terms of, the primary concerns, educational welfare, fine, and excellent return on investment for taxpayers. I don't think that's the way we want to say that.
Would you repeat the comment, please?
You don't think that's the way it should be said? Or that's how you...
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay. Well, the board can decide to reword it and bring it back next month, should they so choose, or...
Or we could vote for the principles in and ask for language change.
may I don't know what the rules are. Can I speak to that a little bit?
Sure.
I've thoroughly read it, and I have a big problem also with the language and the diction and the choice of words. A code of ethics is a moral right or wrong type of document, and I think this confuses quite a few issues. I actually rewrote the whole thing, okay? But I made a major editorial, not so much to the substance, but as to the grammar, spelling, and primarily diction, as in the choice of verbs, etc. But all the content is still here.
So I guess what I would do is we have a couple different committees. There's a personnel committee, there's a new board orientation that should be before the next SVSU meeting in April. So if it's okay with the board, we can take Ray's suggestions, Jim's rewrite, and we can either take it to the personnel committee or the new board orientation or the board chairs, and we can take, if anybody else would like to send some edits, we can take a look at all the edits and bring it back next month, if that's okay with everyone. All right, so Jim, thank you, and Ray, thank you. We'll figure out some way to coordinate everything. So we're going to pass over this, but it sounds like people agree with the principles, but not necessarily the words chosen. So we'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments? Rick?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were getting on the reorganization so quick. I need the motion for off-schedule warrants.
Okay.
I'm looking for it. Richard, do you have what I sent to you?
I was actually going to do it under financial, but we can do it now so we
I'm
don't
sorry.
forget.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so Marie, would you like to state your name, please, and come up to the mic?
My name is Marie Dekoff. I'm a taxpayer and a parent of the Bennington community, and I'm also a BSD board member. And I would like to request to the board that as you're doing the revision of the teachers' contracts, that when you're doing it, that you add in there that they are drug tested and background checked on every teacher, every para, and every substitute teacher that we have on this school. I am a bus driver, and a background check and a drug test is done on me when I'm hired, and it's frequently done throughout the year. I feel that with a lot of the issues that we've had going on in the community, that if we had drug testing done on our teachers and our paras and our substitutes, maybe there's issues here that are overlooked, and it needs to be really checked on and added into their contract.
Marie, I appreciate your comments. There's a couple places where that can go. The teacher's handbook is being looked at and rewritten.
That's what I'm being revised. I'd like to have it added in.
The lawyer will be reviewing it. It'll probably also go through some committee. It could.
I've already spoke to him too.
Okay.
For policy.
Okay, but I'm not sure it's a he, but.
It was a he.
Okay. So, and it has come up under policy a couple of times in different areas in terms of different policies we've seen, so, I'll refer to Leon.
It's not just the teachers that are being hired, but it should be done on all the old teachers and any that are present at the time.
We'll definitely take that under advisement, and we are looking at the ESP contract right now as well.
I'd like to keep my kids safe, and I have no qualms about being drug tested or background checked. I feel it's very important that we all give them 100%.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Any other public comments, Lori?
Good evening. My name is Lori Mulhern. I'm a resident of Bennington, and I also have students in the SVSU. And I know that a lot of parents have come forward, those with special needs children and or other family members, to share with you some of the unfunctional programming that exists. But I do want to give you tonight a couple of examples of some very effective programming and some really, really positive results. I felt that in addition to sharing criticism, we also need to give positive feedback, and that is a really important thing, that we do take the time to do that. And I wanted to just read to you some examples of 2 students that I'm aware of and just share with you. It's very brief. It'll give you a sort of a highlight of what their world is like, but how far they've come. And so the first student is actually, I believe, 10 years old, has a low working memory. And what this means is that they're like a computer. They have to dump information to acquire new information when their disk is full. And unfortunately, this leads to huge issues when it comes to remembering math because you can't remember it. This student had a real challenge remembering his own birthday. He could not remember his birthday. He could not remember where he lived. He could not remember very specific things. This, of course, was a serious academic challenge. The student could not sit up for long periods of time in a school seat, could not participate in all activities, would often shut down, be underneath a desk, underneath a table, sort of isolate themselves. This individual would go and wedge himself in between filing cabinets in the classroom and the wall. There are times during stressful situations that the student would shut down, sort of sit in a position and refuse to move, but also had selective mutism where the student would refuse to speak. This impacted access to education, of course, on a daily basis, quite frequently. And what wound up happening is that this went on. It was very difficult for this student. I believe this went on for a few years, that everybody kept trying different things to try and help the student. And it, trial and error is what it took, and also a lot of flexibility. And also a lot of creative programming. A science program was developed for this student, and it involved his special interest, which was the animals, which was birds, and the weather, and how much rainfall, insects, and it reintegrated this student back into participating in his education, but also simultaneously the student received social skills training and also had some really great partnerships between the special educator and the regular teacher, where luckily enough the rooms were side by side, so the student could move freely between 2 rooms whenever there was a challenge. And what this did is enabled the special educator to jump in and address an issue if need be, and also allowed the regular educator to, sort of oversee what was happening in that room so they could pick up on techniques or methodologies used. And I wanted to share what the student is now. The student is receiving honors. The student has friends. The student is able to participate in all school activities for the most part. There is modified curriculum to address, of course, a variety of issues, but the student participates in art, gym, moves through the halls very confidently, and actually is assisting more challenged students with their learning. So I thought that was a great example of how it does take a little time and it does take creativity, but it can lead to a success. And ideally, this student wasn't even participating in this education and is now receiving an honors level of academic activity. Even though it's modified curriculum, that's a huge gain for any student with special needs. The other student I wanted to tell you about, it's a really funny case because this student would grunt. The student would scream and holler, not be able to communicate, but the student would also repeat everything they heard. It's called echolalia. So he was very echoic. He would throw himself down on the ground and cry and scream. Wouldn't know what to say to you, to tell you what happened. The student could not initiate any play with peers, could not participate in dramatic play because a banana could not possibly be a telephone under no circumstances. So that's the rigidity of the disability. This student entered into kindergarten and scored above 95 percentile on the maps through the effective programming he had through special ed here in our SVSU. This student is actually performing multiplication math facts as well as word problems. This student is also reading at a good second grade going on to third grade level. So this is a kindergartner, 6 years old. Effective programming, early intervention did help this student. But again, these are some really positive examples. I wanted to let you know that the first student I told you about has an autistic disorder. The second student is also autistic. We can do this, and I just ask the community to certainly help us with the budget to make things happen, but I also ask the board to look at the budget and see where it can be used most effectively, and to also look at, try and do what we can together to make a better program for all these students, including our regular students. They need help too. And thank you. That was all I had to say.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
I always get it mixed up. Is it Tara or Sky?
Tara.
Tara Sky.
I just had a question about AYP and sort of how many years the schools haven't been making AYP, and what exactly, like where you can find what exactly is being done to address not making AYP.
So I'm going to just tell you briefly where you can find it, and I don't know if we'll touch on it tonight. The AYP is adequate yearly progress, as for anyone that might be listening, and the action plans in each of the schools address what needs to happen. So any principal in any of the schools will be able to share with you the action plan for that building for that year. You probably have seen that the scores are online on the state website. I don't know if I'm on our website. I don't know if they're on our website, but you will hear a little bit about what's happening in some of the districts tonight. But we can get you more detailed information.
It's just been what I'm reading. Some of the things that it says it's supposed to be happening aren't happening. So I didn't know why there seemed to be a discrepancy and where I would get the information as to what's supposed to happen and then what is happening.
We will be addressing that tonight, and
Okay.
we can get you more detailed information. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Shamri, before the presentation.
Sure. Are there any other citizens' comments? So I'd like to turn it over to Catherine prior to our presentations for this evening.
Thank you, Jean-Marie. Before I begin with the introduction to the presentations this evening, I would like to acknowledge the challenging times that we are facing in our supervisory union. The release in the media of a concealed tape has prompted investigations into alleged misconduct. As these investigations are confidential, I am restricted from commenting, and often it appears as if I am being unresponsive. I want to ensure you that misconduct is not tolerated, and measures will be taken as warranted. As procedures and policies are found to need revision, they will be revised. But during these difficult times, we must also commend our administrators, faculty, and staff who continue their positive, dedicated, professional work on behalf of our students, our children. The presentation this evening is the first of 3 presentations highlighting some of that work. Tonight, you will learn ways in which we are closely monitoring student progress and changing instruction to meet student needs based on data supported by professional development for our faculty and staff. We are doing wonderful things with children in our supervisory union. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend the 4-way test and essay contest sponsored by Rotary. That was just last evening. Remarkable essays, very good presentations by each of the students. We have the oral recitation for poetry competitions, our athletics, and most important, and the presentation will illustrate that this evening, our daily instruction every day for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Who will introduce our Improving Student Achievement?
Donnelly.
Great.
So should I stand at the mic? Is that the best way?
You can.
one in front of you.
I don't think that was working.
It is. It's working.
Oh, is it? There's no little light on it.
Maybe it's just not. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Leap. I'm the Assistant Superintendent in the SVSU, and I just want to thank you all tonight for the opportunity to be here to really clarify what you were asking about improving our programs for student achievement and what are we actually doing to make those things happen. So I want to thank all of our administrators, our principals, directors, and other administrators who have been working closely with our coach, Dr. Maura Hart, who was here with you last time. I'm sorry some of you, the new members, missed that, but she did present a slideshow and a talk with us about aligning systems of support for improved student achievement. Maura was here again yesterday, or Monday, and helping us to really look at some of our objectives for improving student work here in the district, and then how we are coalescing those into our common district goals that we will then use to improve performance. So she is really following up on what the state of Vermont is asking from us for our student achievement. What are the goals that we need to meet the recommendations from the state? Also, she was helping to inform all of you and the public about some of the programs that we have and what is best practice, and then also looking for your support as the board and how we are all going to make that happen together, because you are a very critical part of making sure that all of that happens. So we're here tonight to follow up on some of the information that she started to present. The directors and principals and all the administrators got together at a meeting, and we're looking at our district goals and the ones in particular that are on the bottom of your agenda. And they started listing out action steps about all of the things across the district that we are doing to improve student achievement. And the lists got so long and so varied that we said, well, we can't stand up there and present a list to everyone, and, or they'll just, their eyes will glaze over and we'll put them right to sleep. So they decided that they would coordinate them into selected topics that would cover most of those goals, and those are the titles or the presentations that we would like to give to the board this meeting and over the next 3 meetings. So tonight we're doing monitoring early childhood progress, response to intervention, the principles and strategies for effective instruction, and showing you a working model from Monument Elementary, and Principal Donna Cawley is here to present that. And then at the next meeting, the topic is Common Core Curriculum, looking at curriculum alignment and implementation, some of the pilot programs in the district and the success that they're having, and looking at the NECAP to SBAC testing transition, which is a new state test that will be coming out in 2015, and the work that the SVSU is doing to meet the goals of that testing, which is going to be much different than what we're used to, and we're starting to prepare people now. The next meeting will be May 22, and that will be highlighting technology. It will link very closely to the meeting that we have about the new testing process, the SBAC, because that is going to be a technology-based test, and we are looking ahead to what is our plan for meeting the needs at all the schools to be able to facilitate that. And then the last meeting will be our usual State of the SVSU report, where we will present clear data reports about our progress in the school and our AYP status at that time. We'll also look at the community involvement and what we have developed for that, and doing some follow-up on some of the data and assessments that we will be initiating tonight. So with me tonight are Karen Burnell and Danielle DePoe. Is that it? Good. For early childhood. And then I will be presenting a report that is given from Susan Lowell about response to intervention and what is best practice and research-based curriculum and instruction. And she has been presenting that in professional development to all our staff members over the past 2 years. And then Donna Cawley will present her working model demonstrating all of the strategies from response to intervention and how that's working in our district. So again, I want to thank you. I think that you really have a wonderful district, and I think it's time that we really highlight some of the great work that's being done, because I don't think that we're here often enough really giving you solid information about the work and how the strategies are working. So I would like to introduce Danielle and Karen.
Before we start our short presentation for you, I want to thank you for the opportunity. And this is actually the first time that you've had a chance to meet Danielle. Danielle was hired on, began work on October 1st, and she's been a great addition to our team. I also want to apologize. I may sneak out. You may see me sneak out periodically. I've been volunteering for Special Olympics for 36 years. I've been in the field 36 years, and 55 of my athletes are having a basketball game down there right now. And they're very sad that their Wednesday night basketball team is, they said, but Karen, you have board meetings on Thursday, and I said, no, it changed. So I told them I'd sneak down and say hello, but I'll be back. And, you know, ironic, some of the athletes were in my very first class when I started here in 1977, and they're playing basketball tonight. So it's a fun, heartwarming event for me. Before we start, you all know the importance of early childhood. We don't have to talk about that anymore. The research supports it. But periodically, when I've been here to present, I hear things like, well, how do we know we're making a difference locally? And so tonight, what we wanted to share with you was the tools that we use to monitor children's progress. And we would welcome the opportunity to come back after we have a year of data, and we have last year's data, to be able to share that with you if you'd like to see the hard data. But we just wanted to talk to you about the process tonight so that you have an idea of what we're doing on a daily basis.
So this is our very first slide, and what it is a very good illustration of a glimpse into our world. And often when you walk into an early childhood classroom, this is what you will see. There are kids playing with blocks. I think there's a kid playing with a feather and some sensory things. There's two children at a table dressed up having a tea party. And then there's a teacher somewhere in there, I think. Yeah, there she is. And she's kind of not the highlight of the picture, because the children are the highlight of the picture, and they're working really, really hard, and they're engaged in their play. And it does look like they're just playing, but for children, play is their work. So this classroom is what you would typically see in any one of our early childhood classrooms today. And this picture illustrates the big pieces of our assessment tool that we use. It's called Teaching Strategies Gold. So if you go back to this picture, and it looks like kids are just playing and the teacher's kind of just there watching them. There's a lot of intention that goes into planning those activities, and a big part of what she does is building in that intentionality, but then assessing what they're doing through their play. And that's what really guides the implementation of curriculum and assessment for the individual children. And so it is systematic, it is observation-based, and it is most definitely developmentally prepared.
You might wonder why we picked Teaching Strategies Gold. It was actually a decision of the state when I was part of a committee that reviewed federal assessment tools. And this is a statewide requirement in all preschool programs in the state, including those with children with disabilities and public pre-K, are required to use this assessment tool. So we're able to look at not only our district data, but our statewide data as well. The tool itself is very comprehensive, and the objectives that were picked as part of the assessment are those that are the best predictors of school success. It also is nice because it's directly aligned to the Vermont Early Learning Standards, and it's also aligned with So So all the things the teachers are doing by using this strategy and using the results of the assessment tool allows us to meet the objectives of other requirements that we have, which is following the order and standards of assessment. There's a lot of different areas that the assessment tool looks at, and this is all a research-based assessment tool, and everything that was chosen, it was chosen through the lens of what makes a difference in many children to be successful in the school. So you can see here, there's many things that are developmental in nature, and there's also things that are aspirational. And each assessment on each child will include all of those areas that you can see on that slide.
And the language used in these objectives is very similar to the language used. This slide shows a rainbow projection, and in TSO they're called color bands, and the color bands represent the livelihood expectations for each age group. But the tool is predictable, but it's not rigid. It has a lot of overlap in it, and all of the different things that people do. This shows the progression from birth all the way to kindergarten, because TSO does measure children's development from birth to kindergarten, so it really shows a wide range of different stages of their development as they progress from birth to kindergarten.
This is probably our favorite slide, because this is really what it's all about. And this is the process that we follow, so I'm just going to walk you through it pretty quickly so that you understand what this is doing. This assessment is cyclical, that's why it's the visual is that's the way that it is. It guides the instruction and influences what teachers and what teachers teach and how teachers teach. You heard Danielle a little while ago talk about intentionality. It makes our work intentional, so when you go back and think about that first slide and it looks like chaos, it usually is that the teacher has a very specific plan for what it needs to do. And this process drives the quality of the program. When you look at the orange, the top is what facts. What facts really are for us is it's evidence of learning. And how teachers collect that evidence of learning is through observation and watching children. You're not going to take young children and do it with standardized tests. You're not going to put them on a computer test. You're not going to do a pencil paper test. You're going to watch them and observe them. And the teachers in our parents really document those observations, and they do it both all without writing. They do it through photography, we do it through video, and we have that collection. So it's very easy to go back and review. And I also need to say that evidence, when you think about evidence, when you think about it's entirely legal case, you want actual evidence, actual evidence, just in the facts. And then you can show that it's systematic and it's deliberate. Once we have those facts, then the teacher goes to that analyze and respond to and they will review the evidence they have and they will ask themselves, what did I just learn about this child? After they answer that question, then they go down to the evaluation stage of the evaluation and say, they ask themselves, what does the child do? What do they need to learn next? What do I need to reteach? Because they might not have the skills or the skills. And what is the child's particular learning style? Do I need to add more materials and supply new materials to the classroom? I noticed that, John never goes to the writing area. He's using the writing, always using the blocks and stuff. I think I'm going to use the writing over and make next. People are always thinking about it. What's the hook? What's the information? And our last is the summarizing, planning, and communicating. And that's really important because what we here is we are constantly thinking based on any given day that we never know tomorrow. What can we achieve today so that we can do something different tomorrow? What can we do today that we hope that it does and then we can repeat tomorrow? Because we want to have that continuity and we're able to communicate these results with parents that follow me. It's quite enjoy. This is a electronic assessment system that we choose to do, so everything is entered into the computer. It's a fabulous program. It's very helpful. I don't have much time to tell you everything about it. But our recommended teacher will sit with the parent and pull out the evidence of their child generally and show them the pictures of their work that have been uploaded, the videos that have been uploaded, or a photo of their uploaded. So you can say, this is really public and it works. This is what that is. And it's also something that we can draw off reports so Danielle and I can monitor and look at individual classes. We can look at groups of classes. We can look at our partners. We can look at our partners. And so that we can keep a handle on what's working out. There's the strengths of classrooms, there's the challenges of classrooms, there's the teachers and the skills and tools that we need to make this business really what we want to do. This is really what we want to do. So it helps us. So it's really good.
Build off of what Ken was just explaining about the assessment cycle. I want to share with you kind of a big picture idea that I've had for taking this work of assessing individual children and looking at the whole group and then looking at the whole group for parents. And so that we can use the assessment data not only how to impact our individual children, but how to impact on individual teachers and then how to impact the So one of the goals that I had is to take the data that we collect from PSP, each of the individual children, in each of the individual programs, and use that in addition to the data that we collect from kindergarten teachers and together with the director from kindergarten and then also use the data that I collect when I go into each of the classrooms that we partner with and that we also as well. And look at all three sources of data to see where there's parallel information or where there may be gaps so that we can strengthen the overall program and then look at it from year to year to make sure that we are making forward progress and really addressing those gaps are. Because one of my fears, and I'll be very honest with you, is that we collect all this wonderful data on individual children and it doesn't match up to what is expected or what I've seen in the past. So I really want to take up that information to make sure that there are no gaps and that we are doing the most effective job that we can and the earliest.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen and Danielle. I just wanted to thank Kathy Marcoux. She's here with us tonight, and maybe Kathy wanted to share a few words with us because she really has been instrumental in looking at the data in our district, really noticing the work that needs to be done, and she brought to the forefront the idea that we needed to really look at our reading instruction in the district, and she brought Susan Lowell. I'm going to present Susan's PowerPoint just to explain what is response to intervention and help you understand that cycle of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And so, Kathy, did you have a few words you want to share?
Sure. I thought I was going to be clean up that.
You're a little bit
insulted that I was left out with it.
Oh,
and
no.
didn't get any slides because they wouldn't let me any slides.
You get it next
The things
time.
that are really important are we're choosing intentionally. We're choosing our professional development, our staff developers in our system intentionally. We really need to guarantee that they work with each other, work with us to make that beautiful marriage of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, not just on paper, that it's a living, breathing thing with our kids. The timely intervention, not waiting to fail, failing to wait, make sure that we immediately intervene when a student is not meeting the standard. You'll hear about a very successful program that has early, wonderful results data. We also have some other things that you'll hear about at the next, at the, what is it, April? The April meeting as well, about some computer-based pieces that we have. But some things that really have changed are, and for instance, just using Susan as an example. We know that for special education students, over time, we've received information about the fact that we have many students in special education who qualify for special education, and it always seems to be a red flag for the state, that it's nearly 20% of our students. So when we chose a professional developer, we needed someone who is a reading expert and someone who is an expert in reading disabilities. Susan Mole is both. She's an expert in dyslexia. She goes all over the world to speak about dyslexia. And she is an early literacy expert. So that's an intentional choice for professional development, because we want to make sure that we are giving the very best to students no matter what school they attend, no matter what teacher they have in their school, to be sure that they get a high quality education and they get intervention when it is that they need it. So we have all kinds of intentional professional development that we've chosen. And I know Dawn's going to phone me out of there in a minute, but she's going to talk about response to intervention. You'll hear more from me next month.
The hook is coming. So I'm not sure, I mean, I know who Kathy Marcoux is. We have 2 new board members in the group.
I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and you've been doing professional development for all for that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sorry, for the SVSU until June 30th, 2013. Who's counting?
So response to intervention is a term that gets thrown around a lot and sometimes called RTI. And it seems very basic, like, well, of course we're going to be doing it this way. But it isn't as easy as it seems, and I think that it really has grown with the wonderful programs that Karen and Danielle told us about, the assessments that are meaningful and focused on each child's needs, and that's what it is all about. So you have to be able to have the components that will create a good learning program for students, monitor the data and that tells you whether it's working or not, and then look at your instruction and is it working or is it not, and how are we going to change that. So that is the cycle, and it's just intervention means activities used to help students. So in essence, it really brings together all of high quality teaching, a good curriculum, and then using assessments functionally to look forward at how we're going to improve learning. So most of instruction falls into these 3 categories, and the largest portion is Tier 1, which is your regular classroom instruction, which needs to be research-based and implemented with fidelity. And then we monitor how students do in the regular classroom. Students in Tier 2, we would be looking at them if they weren't doing quite as well, making the progress we expected, and that they would get additional small group instruction. Then Tier 3 would be students that are still not able to make the assessments that we would expect them to, and that they might need special additional services. So in Tier 1 is usually about 80% of the students. And we can also include this model as in our school-wide behavior in looking at the way we approach behavior management in the school, in that 80% of students are probably doing just fine and doing what they need to be doing to succeed in the classroom. Tier 2 is the next 15% of students who need some strategic small group instruction with very regular progress monitoring, maybe even weekly or every 2 weeks. And that can be both in academic and behavioral interventions. In behavior, we monitor the data as well and see, are the students being successful? Are they improving their behavior, and teaching them strategies so that they can be more successful. And then Tier 3 is really intensive instruction, where we would even have team meetings and discuss each student's progress. It's very individualized, and are there extra services that we need to provide for those students. So The basic component is providing a scientifically based instruction of increasing intensity, which is what we are doing, and Donna will show you how she's doing that in her school in a little bit. And looking at the instruction, making sure that in every classroom, teachers are using the scientific-based programs with fidelity. And that means they use their professional development, they're implementing it in their classroom as it should be, and they're giving students the right amount of instruction every day.
Donna, are all the schools using this RTI?
It's growing. I think that it's implemented in different amounts in different ways in the schools. It is the model that we're adopting, and we're really trying to facilitate that it is across the board everywhere. We have a scientifically based curriculum that is adopted called Foundations at the early levels, where we need to really focus on students getting reading instruction so that they're successful moving up through the grades. And we are in the process of implementing regular assessments that are nationally normed so that we know our students meeting the expectations that any first grader would have across the United States, or any second grader, because you can't use just school-based assessments and assume that the progress you're making is enough progress. You have to be able to see what it looks like in a nationally normed assessment. So, yes, Kathleen?
I just wanted to say, ultimately, we want the evidence of the achievement is watching children read, comprehend, and
Right. So the RTI model is really for looking at the data carefully, looking for problems that the students might be having, define that, design an intervention plan, implement and continue to monitor progress on an ongoing basis, and then continue to say, is it working? Is what we're doing appropriate for that student? So the big ideas are they need high quality instruction in every classroom, frequent assessments, and then using the data from the assessments to continue to monitor progress and reformat the program as needed. And we need your support for that. Some of these things require special tools. We all need assessment programs like AimsWeb, and Donna will show you how that's working in her school. And it just needs to be a focus of our attention that we are giving every school and every staff and every student the opportunity to learn using these methods. So the high quality instruction is effective instruction that leads to the development of skills, which in this case we're mostly talking about reading because it has been highlighted as the one skill that students will need to progress in every subject, using frequent assessments on a continuous basis to improve skills, and then making adjustments to the instruction based on the data that we see for each student. So, next, Donna has been implementing this RTI program at Monument. She was guided by Susan Lowell right at the beginning of the school year, and she really showed her staff how this could work. It is a successful model, and she's worked very hard with her team to implement the model at her school.
Thank you. Let's power down for a second. So I want to thank you all for letting me present tonight, and I want to provide some incentives for you to attend tonight's portion of the PowerPoint. So for our newly elected
A kazoo.
It's a kazoo, and it's very important. Very complicated. Understand it's very common. And it's very complicated. Everything should have an element of fun in it. And I truly believe that. Since you're now all part of our support of the community, so please wear these proudly. And a kazoo is the way we celebrate in our school to acknowledge each of us as a staff and community. And what we do is for each other. That's really important. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but okay. Okay, good. So now I'll take it to Cal. a working model. So if you look at this, okay, right here. That might be hard. If you look at this, this is actually a schedule for our school. So I'll try to define it a little bit to you. You can see our day starts at 8 o'clock and it goes to 3:30. The band of blue is our first 90-minute block that we are presenting our Tier 1 intervention, our instruction. The pink block is for K and 1. The pink block is for second and third. And the green block is for our 4 and 5. So we spend 90 minutes every day with every child. And we devote this time very specifically to So it looks very complicated, but it really isn't. So I nod and say, yes, I agree. It's good, right? Yes, you can do it. Thank you. No, you have
How do you
to
do it?
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Keep going. Liam, you're next.
And our Tier 2 intervention, when we recognize that some of our students are not making progress on assignment at the Tier 1 level, we are providing them with an additional 30 minutes of reading instruction in this afternoon by our reading specialist. It's really important, as I go on in the slides, that you see what components are so very important in this reading pattern, and why your support is really important. So Tier 1, scientifically based for instruction, as we said, and triennial reading. So when our children come in September, we provide them with a screening that shows us the whole school. We know exactly what every student is. We benchmark them. We have the information. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And we know exactly where they're starting. And every student that doesn't reach above 26th percentile, we put a flag on. We need to watch them. We need to progress monitor them on a weekly, bi-weekly basis to ensure that they're making progress. They're not waiting 6 to 7 weeks. We're doing this ongoing, and that's really important. So here's an example of our Ames Web progress monitoring tool. And I love this because I get to be a part of this monument. I'm giving you an example here. I think I can show you. This is our September benchmark for students, and this is our winter benchmark for students. So even though I want you to look very carefully, these are two different measures. This is letter naming, and this is letter sound. So I'm sorry, not September, winter, excuse me. September, winter, September, and winter, January. Look at that line. What does it all tell you? What do you think that line going up means?
Can't blow this thing, but are you going in the right direction?
Improvement.
Any volunteers?
Improvement.
You got a dub?
Improvement, exactly.
I gotta do it.
If that line wasn't going up, these staff and these colleagues need to sit down and say, why did it go up? Why did that student respond to our intervention and our instruction? What's wrong? What do we have to do differently? That's why we have this. That's why we progress monitor and benchmark students. Now this group, you can see, was in the above average range in September. We didn't progress monitor this group. But there are students that were in the 25 percentile and lower who we did on a regular basis. There are Tier 2 groups. So those students would have a progress monitoring example like this. And each time we meet with them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and then progress monitor them again in the benchmark in the winter. But our goal here is, if you look at this, that black line right there is the trajectory to the 50th percentile. That's our goal. We place a lofty goal on our students. We want them at the 50th percentile of the average. That's what we do. And these are individual data points. Today, I won't worry about my students. You really want to pay attention to one or the third. Or maybe you do this. Not each individual one, student is responding to our teacher's intervention. Now, the student is also getting 30 minutes of instruction additionally to the 90 minutes in the morning. If the student wasn't improving on his trajectory, we would have to call the and say, what do you have to do? Problem solve, figure that out, and you have to decide what you think that's the student. 10 minutes, 2 months later, not a minute, what is that? Not a wait to fail model. Tier 3, and that would be that student who wasn't responding to our progress monitoring and our instruction. We're seeing that. So we would go beyond the tier 2 and we would say, maybe they need a third round. Maybe they need a different scientifically based program. Maybe we're going to consider more days. Maybe we're going to refer them to our EST team and brainstorm with our colleagues what are some other options to enable the child to make progress. So we have to work together in showing selection. And lastly, it might be referred to our evaluation planning team to see if we continue to do intervention. Does the student possibly have disability? And that's what it's doing. Any questions so far?
That sounds good.
Can't get these things blown.
This is what a successful RTI model looks like. And I want to let you know that I did not come up with these. I just came up with all of those. Guesses? Who might have come up with them?
Students.
One of them is from a student. But teachers, who said teachers? Well, and I certainly could have wrote down my thoughts of what I knew represented a successful model. But clearly, I thought it was important for my class to also see that. And there are ideas here. These are the things that they themselves acknowledge work and what is happening in our story. So we're really focusing on the success of all students. Everyone who makes the smallest organization is working as a team, and that's something. We don't just work our own as a team in the classroom. We work special educators, team classes, head teachers, classroom teachers, our educators. We meet every single week. We collaborate for 45 minutes. We don't talk about children in general about what's happening with them in their whole life. We get to the data every single week and we say, are we having to move instructional groups? Where do the children belong to? Very expensive. We're thinking both ends of the spectrum. And I'm going to go back really quickly to show you something very important here. Down the bottom there, individual instruction. This child is above average. Why would we say that? They're saying to us, that child is above the third. We can do that at the upper level of our class. We don't need to. We're able to diversify and differentiate for our students, and that's what we're doing, because we're working as a team. We're smaller groups. Our differentiation for classroom teachers has moved closer because we're able to divide the children up, and those at this level, individual needs, are in group, and those who are below the 25th percentile, and individual needs, and another group who's below the scoring the average of 50%. Everyone feels valued. Everyone knows they have a part. We have a decrease in undesirable behaviors. Ongoing monitoring of individual progress for those students under the 21st reduction in special education evaluations. At Monument, there was not one more initial evaluation of special education. Last year, it was 50. That's staff. That's the time. That's the response to our responders. That's working every single week. Collaboration amongst teachers and not enough questions. I have to tell you more is valuable. The unit of work is 45 minutes. And I have to tell you, there's an hour in there. Smaller differentiation gap, that's where I talked about. We've got groups at the high end, groups at the low end, groups in the middle. Teachers, and individual teachers don't have to stretch to do it all. They're sharing responsibility. Collaboration amongst colleagues is valued. Whether the students or individual learning profile, first week they come in. Meeting with the client. As soon as they enter our school, I can tell you whether it's a possibility of reaching success rates by NPS and by benchmarking and progress monitoring. We know it's important, and we know it's more. That's required to do it. Classrooms, students, and children. Our kids are very excited about making progress. Our kids are very excited about making progress, and they are taking ownership of their own progress. And the assessment of these students after instruction and placement is really, really cool. When you have a new child come in, it's not always dynamic. First thing they do is come in and put in the dynamic. I can have that information to the teachers as well. And they're excited about it. That's how the students beyond their role, everyone looks like we're reading unlocking literature as a staff. Our parents are doing this. Our parents are reading unlocking literature. We're talking about it as a whole school and how they relate. Our parents are going to this way. They feel honored for the role they play and what they do in the classroom. There are teachers all kids parents, volunteers, get around all the time. No fun discussions and reading at my new teacher. Everybody's a new program out. They came to school, they get together, they come every day, they exchange books. Every kid they want to see the shirt, they book. Actually spending a whole day in the
Go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And,
you.
Any questions?
Yes.
Very good. Oh, great.
Yes, Avis?
Actually, it's a comment that I have long believed, and that is a wonderful program like this is based on a low ratio of students to teacher. If the teacher becomes overfaced with too many students, it can't be done. And that's something that I have, when the state comes out with this, well, to save money, we have to increase numbers in classrooms, not at the elementary level, no ma'am.
Actually, in the statute. Ray and, well, Cindy and then Ray.
I just was curious.
How I know for a fact, I actually know how to talk to the bot many times in the collaborative. Actually, we have already set up our resources for August, and we as staff are getting together to do the letter.
They also have input.
And they also have input. They're also corresponding to
So they're set up to do it, and I believe they're running each one so but that has been really.
Yeah, I've actually enjoyed him as a colleague and speaking with him, and so, they're certainly moving in the same direction. I'm not going to be, this is really hard. And, the implementation we developed is something that we have to really think through.
Ray?
Sorry. But it really is hard, and we really need to take it step by step. And so I need to feel that I'm going to go back and everything is resolved and I'm not on the small portion, so it's really hard. I think it's great.
Well, my original question was a pretty mundane one. If the special ed teacher is in there, how does the state, in review of time usage, classify that?
Very clearly. As long as you do not monopolize the special ed group, you get the I watch those numbers, and I weigh those time samples, and I am assuring that those students who are getting specialized instruction, the only reason for adding a student to that group is because they're on the same level. So they cannot move past the mark of more than special ed students. So
Any other questions?
Well, you brought up another one. What do you mean, you made a big point of fidelity to the instruction? What do you mean?
I mean that we have 90-minute blocks, and we as a staff have committed that the first 45 minutes of that block is foundations instruction, all teachers doing it, full class, with fidelity. They're following that lesson in American. We're just not really picking up portions of that instruction. And I like that first part, and I like that third part, and I might do a little bit of spelling. This is about a program that's scientifically based, and it's a reason students follow a lesson plan shows us
Leon? And then Jim?
Okay, I guess this is what Karen told me to hold on for last year, that this was coming. And it's here, it's everything that I think we were supposed to have some time ago. at the elementary level that I was saying we needed to start to get this in there. So I think this is right on. And the question that I had, how quick is this going to be rolled? This is SVSU. It needs to be rolled out to the other districts. You mentioned one, but the other schools should be right on line with that. And it's a driven back, not just from one school, it's from the SVSU. Is to be able to say that this is a standard for everybody. We're saying Pound is starting to get on board, so I'm saying to somebody else, how long is going to be before everybody is on board and being driven from SVSU?
So, Leon, I don't want to put districts and people on the spot, but I appreciate that we totally appreciate what's going on, and I'm going to leave it to the administrators to, you know, do what they have to do. I'm not going to point fingers who's doing it and who's not at this board. And Donna is actually a teaching principal, just to let people know she has the .2 teaching and the .8 administrating, so every situation is different. Jim?
You keep mentioning that we need additional funding. Do you have an incremental cost for students for doing this? Say for materials, or nothing else?
I'm putting it together. We work together collaboratively. It isn't free. It is not free. But
Tell a number we don't know that.
So at each board level, I mean, it's hard to do that at this level because we're the SU board.
Each one is about $7 per year.
7-0?
That's all. $7 per student.
so that I respond to that. We also have math testing that goes on. That's easier. We have foundation materials, having better knowledge of what that is.
Thank you so much for coming, Don. I really, thank you, all of you.
Is it possible to have your presentation, these are slides, so it's sort of a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Can that be electronically
Sure.
board?
It can actually just be put on the web,
Or put on the website?
I just want it added to the packet for today's meeting.
And the other one is Susan Wall has been a wonderful consultant for our district.
She came last meeting. Didn't she?
She plans to come in June, because she is going to be in the area, and so she would like to come.
So we have a really full rest of the agenda, and we have a number of items, more than a couple for executive session. So I'm going to move on to the financial reports. And Richard, do you have the wording of that motion from the previous board?
I got it.
All right, so Rick, could you read that, please?
Move to authorize the officers of the board to approve interim board warrants between regularly scheduled board meeting dates.
Okay, so can
Board of
someone...
Directors will affirm the warrants at their next regularly scheduled board meeting.
So what?
Second.
So you pick, Richard. All in favor? I think
Does
it's
that mean
unanimous.
all together or individually?
It means each
This
one,
board, is that a question?
any
Yeah, but
one
you're
of the
talking about
officers.
But it doesn't say that.
All right, at the other boards, Richard, can you, one of the Richards, could you read the beginning? To authorize the officers.
The officers.
Any of the officers.
The SVSU board.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay, to authorize any of the officers. Is that amenable to everybody? Okay. So I need a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? Are there any questions on it? Any questions on the budget status report? Rick is here. Seeing none. The next item, this was not fully spelled out. It should have been, I had originally had it as the Ray and Glenn, members of the Prudential Committee. That's not the North Bennington request, but it is the request from 2 members of the North Bennington Prudential Committee. So, Glenn, do you want to come up to the mic, the table? Do you want to sit with Ray? Matt, there's a seat next to Jim. Glenn, would you like to introduce yourself for the new folks?
Yeah, welcome.
Actually, you have a name card.
Great. My name is Glenn Cheney. I'm a member of the North Bennington Grade School Prudential Committee. And I just walked in. Did you do any kind of introduction as far as why?
None. We've been busy.
Yeah.
So I can give I'll give a little preamble. So at the last SVSU meeting, I'd asked for volunteers to sit on a subcommittee to look at with North Bennington representatives to look at the SVSU assessments and to look at transition items that might be needed to be resolved from the North Bennington district separating from the SU as an operating school district. So the committee met 3 times. We went over a number of things. Rick and Catherine were both in attendance. Myself, Leon, and Larry Johnson from Shaftesbury, Glenn and Ray. And we discussed a couple of items that might become a request, and we gave our input, and we didn't really, as a committee, recommend any one thing. So we left it up to Glenn to work with Ray to bring a request or a proposal to this SVSU board. So how's that?
Okay, that's great, thanks. Okay, so here I am. And given where we are as far as time, I'll try to be as brief as I can. And I'm sorry I didn't bring, to give you an idea how long it's been since I've been in the middle school, I brought an overhead. But it's all right, we can probably move on. So yeah, that's exactly where we are, is we're considering strongly moving towards a non-operating school district, which I'm sure most of I won't go into a heavy explanation about that, but the basic idea is that we would have no school of our own, but that we would lease the school to an independent group that would teach the students within the district and be able to tuition students into the district, and give the students within the district choice to go elsewhere. One of the things we noticed in that I was focusing on specifically in our meetings, and probably the primary thing we talked about initially, was the operating versus non-operating budget, specifically in relation to the supervisory union. There were definitely a few points where Rick had decreased our costs. One of them was the basic technology. There was ELL and Plus, for those of you who remember. And the other things, such as special education, were left exactly the same, meaning in comparison, operating to a non-operating district. And that's all fine and good. But I felt that the administrative services line item, which in our case was $99,000 and some change, should have been decreased when we're in a non-operating district versus an operating district, because it includes things like personnel, keeping in mind that we won't have any people working for us, no employees. I've got a few other items here. Curriculum development, professional development, payroll, personnel, and costs for negotiations, because none of our employees will be part of any of the unions, well, presumably won't be part of any of the unions. So given that, we tried to parse through and find a way that we can deal with reasonably and acceptably decreasing the administrative assessment portion of the SU budget. And it was clear after 2 meetings that this is a much bigger conversation than we can have in a short period of time. And I realize that wholeheartedly that at this point what we're doing, when it got so complicated and so convoluted and trying to figure out a reasonable way to do it, and there was some serious discussion that had to take place as far as what we would and wouldn't be using and what was and wasn't billed and what's fair to redistribute versus decrease costs and how to deal with it. That there was no quick fix for this year, so what we were at least that the impression I got, and if you guys would like to jump in, feel free, was it felt like we weren't going to get anywhere now. So I tried to come up with a solution that would help us for this year, and then with the understanding that we'd have to continue to work on this, and not in a huge time-consuming way, but just sort of a time study as we progress throughout the year of how to deal with it reasonably for future years, so we can really pare it down to every dollar and cent as far as what should be spent and what should be charged. So I went into this with the basic idea that, first of all, of course, the kids get what they need, and secondly, that the taxpayers get what they pay for. So that's how we landed on that. So, trying to parse through comb through the budget and tweeze out all the little bits and pieces, I couldn't, and it's no fault of anybody's except maybe my own inability to get through 20. How many pages is the budget? The SU budget? 20, more than 20. Yeah, it's more than 20 pages of fine print. There just seemed like no way to justify any figure. Some higher, some lower. You couldn't really figure it out. So we fell to maybe finding somebody who could speak to experience, and we approached a board member from the Windhall district, right? Is that Marty? Yeah. And I spoke to both Sean Marie and I had contact with Dan French, who's the superintendent of BRSU. They have several non-operating districts. So when I looked at BRSU's assessment to non-operating schools, it fell somewhere between $330 and $415 per student. So I thought that seemed, if that's what they're doing and they've got experience doing it, that seemed like a reasonable place to start. That is a little less than half of the $99,000 that's being charged right now to North Bennington in the non-operating district budget. So I started thinking about, and this was in the context of trying to find a solution for this year without having to parse through every single penny. And then looking at the budget, the actual budget, the 20-plus page budget, it was pretty clear, and Rick, correct me if I've done this dead wrong, or even if make sure I'm close. Curriculum was looking like it was around $24,000. I couldn't find payroll, personnel, or negotiations specifically broken out, although that may speak more to my inability to port through the budget than anything else. But it looked again like we were heading towards halfway. So I proposed two things to the committee on our last day. One was work out a per diem rate between the non-operating school of North Bennington Grade School District and the SVSU, and that was met with not a lot of enthusiasm. So my backup proposal was simply split the number in half, based on what we were heading towards in pulling numbers out of the administrative assessment, and based on what the supervisory union that has experience with this charges their non-operating districts. And so that's basically where we're at.
So do you have a specific request?
Yeah. I would ask that someone, and again, now I have to apologize a little bit. I'm not particularly familiar with Robert's Rules of Order and all that, but I would think that I would ask, or I'm assuming I can't make a motion, ask someone or the chair to make a motion that SVSU assess North Bennington Graded School District a 50% reduction in administrative assessment should they become a non-operating school district.
So say that again, the assessment in in just that one column?
Yeah, yes.
So the motion would be to reduce the administrative assessment, which is currently at $99,140. 76, right?
Okay.
To reduce it by 50%?
Yes.
Okay. So, Ray, you're a board member. do you want to make that motion?
Yep, I can make that motion.
Okay.
I think we ought to add the stipulation that, that's for this year, this forthcoming year.
Thank you, that's a good point, actually, that was one of the...
Well, it's given that it's fiscal year 14 that we're talking about.
Okay, I'm just trying to get us to discussion. So I think the discussion is that this would not be precedent setting. This is for the fiscal year FY 14. And
Limited to FY 14.
okay, so Richard, you have that motion, right? So we can move to discussion? Ray, Matt seconded it. So Ray, I guess what I'd like to have the picture completed for the full board is your explanation at the committee level to the fact that you would not like to see the other districts' assessments increase. And the reason I bring that up...
I thought Gwen was going to cover that, but yes.
Okay, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because without saying anything about that and without having numbers, for people to see, it just, one might assume that 50,000 is, the way one would normally look at it, is that 50,000 is going to be reassessed.
Okay, may I speak now?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Well, as Gwen said, our idea was that, you should pay, the district taxpayers, for all of us, should pay for services they receive. And the other side of that is that they pay for services they receive. They don't pay for services they don't receive. But given that this is an adjustment of this amount, we don't want other districts who have already feel that they're going to be paying for services that they receive in their assessment and no more, that we don't believe that it should be on their backs. And so basically this is a proposal that this change in the assessment is one that the administration will find a way to deal with without increasing those assessments. And the basis for this, obviously, is that there are certain things, there are services we will not access at all. There are services we will not be able to receive, and that for services that we will still receive to some extent, that there's often going to be a reduction in those. As Gwen was saying, you've got certain costs that are very difficult to pick out of just the administrative line items in the budget. But curriculum and assessment is one that is, and professional development for teachers is basically not going to be delivered to North Bennington. And the personnel issues are there because we won't have personnel. We won't be providing payroll services for them. We won't be dealing with HR functions for them in this operating model. We won't be involved in contract negotiations, and those are some of the things that come to mind at the moment. So there's a reduced cost basis in terms of a reduction in actual services delivered, which is the basis for asking for this.
Glenn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I actually, my apologies, I didn't mean that to be passed off to Ray, because I kind of just presented enough to get the motion out and generate questions, and not realizing that then it would be a board discussion, so I'd be out of it. I was thinking I'd...
Well, I don't think this, I mean, I could ask, we could certainly just vote on the question, but I have a feeling there's going to be some questions about...
Yeah, I was thinking that would be part of what I would do, is answer the question, so I didn't want to just have it all.
Ray, did you have your hand up? Larry?
I could. I do have a question.
Sure.
When did the voters of North Bennington pass their budget without this reduction in place?
They passed the operating school budget, and they passed the tuition rate.
So the budget that they passed actually had more than this in it? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I understood it to be.
Okay. Ken, no? Were you leaning? Okay. Jim?
I have a comment. The budget process has already ended.
Right.
And I think North Bennington is probably a day late on doing this, in that it should probably go into the next budget process, because it affects the rest of us. Whatever we take out of their budget is going to spill over into everybody else's budget. So it's kind of too late to do it.
Well, 1 second, Matt. I think, you're right in the practical, like that's the logical, practical sense, but what Ray and Glenn are, I believe, trying to say is that they are not going to cost the SU that money, but the budget is already voted on, and we do already have those employees, so, it is up for discussion. So, Matt?
No, that's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, the premise of this wasn't just you should give us a break because we're not operating and everybody else should pick up the tab. The premise of this is that nobody should be paying for services none of us should be paying for services we don't receive. And there are actually several services that if we go to non-operating, we simply either won't need or can't access. And we're just looking for a reduction in that cost. And now I've got one other point to that might speak a little bit.
In fact, certain of those services have already been removed out.
Yeah.
Congress, with the PLUS program, the ELL program, technology services, those are all removed from the assessment because we will not be receiving any of those services.
And so, Jim, I don't know if you were part of the budget process in Pownell, but the 3 items that Ray is speaking about were direct bill back. So, although now the technology is different, but at the time, there were services that they used that they were charged for.
Well,
I mean,
under the current, under
right.
this budget for 14, the technology is not a direct bill back.
Right.
Sean Marie,
it's just not.
For clarification and information, and if I understand what North Bennington is saying, that if certain areas can be found in the supervisory union budget that have not been budgeted but have not been earmarked to be spent, that it is possible to lower that assessment. The total supervisory assessment can be cut, if approved by the board, without raising the assessments of any district. Let me go a step further.
Do you know what he's saying?
The two Bennington representatives brought to our board, but we did not get approval yet, on certain items that could be reduced in the supervisory union budget that would not affect any of the assessments. And I think if I'm understanding what he is saying is, are there other areas in that budget? I'm coming back to a position which we've never filled, a couple of positions that haven't been filled, and that we've worked with Rick on, that would not raise anyone's assessment, that would lower assessments. Now I'd have to defer to Rick to find, Rick, you understand what I'm saying?
I think I do, but if I, and it's a big if I understand.
Yeah, I know.
I understand the total conversation that's taken place.
Yes.
And for North Bennington to receive half of their assessment, which is $49,537.09, the SU as a whole, and not cost the other districts any money.
Mm-hmm.
The SU as a whole would have to cut over $1.3 million, because the North Bennington's assessment is only 3.7%, 3.77% of the SU as a whole. So, and I pre-qualified this with a big if, because as I've requested for many months now, the best way for me to react or to provide information to the board is to get a proposal that I can analyze and give to the board that they can react to. Doing my quick numbers here based on everybody throwing numbers on the table. If I'm understanding what the conversation is, you'd have to cut $1.3 million to give them the $49,000 they're requesting without costing the other districts any money. Otherwise, if you just cut that $49,000, let's round to $50,000. You just cut that $50,000 out. Someone else has to pick it up somewhere.
So Glenn, I know you're looking very quizzical.
Yeah.
This is kind of the question I tried to get at in the board, in the subcommittee. So in other words, if your reduction was 50,000 out of your total, and you thought everybody would save by tightening their belts or whatever Leon had said, the proportion that everybody, if your 50,000 is to your budget, then that number is to BSD and that number is to MAU. So in order for you to get a reduction of 50,000, another district needs a reduction in equal percentage of, whatever their assessment is. I don't know what the...
I think I see what you're getting at, and that's
I don't.
That's not... If I'm hearing you right, if we're asking for a 50% reduction, everybody should get a 50%.
Well, not necessarily 50, it's that percentage of that one number. So,
right, well, okay, 50% of that one number, yeah.
But so that 50,000 is coming off your total.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, as a non-operating district, there are several services we're not going to need. And there are several services SU, or the central office, is not going to have to supply. We see that as a potential cost savings for SU. As an operating district, we would need those services. As a non-operating district, we would not. There doesn't seem to be an easy way to get to a specific number, as far, every dollar and cent. So what I'm saying is we use like you said, this is next year's conversation, really. We use this coming year to parse through and figure out really exactly what is and isn't needed for a non-operating district. But in this year, we ask for this one reduction in this one line item, one reduction. And Rick, the $50,000, what is that? What percentage of that is the total SU budget? Can you give me some?
Sure. I don't know what you have, but
yeah, that's what I sent to you yesterday.
May I? No. It sounds like what you're saying, Jean Marie and Rick, is that to cut 50,000, we have to cut 1.3 million.
Well, no, I'm just saying
that seems logically a strange thing to say.
Not really, when you are a member of a union and pay a proportionality of your population as dues to the union. I don't disagree with
what's coming
Glenn's
around
premise, and I've been waiting to see a request to say, we don't think we should have to pay for that, we don't think we should have to pay for that, we don't think we should have to pay for that. And we can clearly analyze that, but and maybe I don't understand the request, and that's part of the reason why I've been asking for a written proposal or request for months now, is that for every dollar that North Bennington doesn't save, doesn't pay the district, someone else has to pay for that. And the analogy I used in one of the committee meetings was, there is no incremental savings in the SU for 3.77% of a reduction. I can't take 3.77% of someone in the HR department and say, okay, don't come for 1 hour on the fourth Thursday of every fourth month, and that's not practical. Now, on consequence, if MAU, which is 50% of the SU, said, we're out, you guys do your own thing, we're getting out of the union, clearly, we can cut staff and cut cost, but at 3.77% of the pie, there's not going to be any savings realized by the SU.
Matt, and then I have something to say. Does somebody have, Larry, did you have your hand up? Matt? Oh, I'm sorry.
An interesting point. I think one of the proposals that was being made was a per diem, a way of analyzing very simply the way that many other professional people, from mechanics to lawyers to doctors, would calculate what it costs to operate on a daily basis, and then calculating how many days you think that they need, that the services that they'll continue to need to supply would cost, and multiply it by those days. We have an estimate of what we think it probably actually costs, and this gets rid of the 3.8% whatever. The people are still there. You're getting paid from us for what you do and not what you don't do. But there seemed to be some people who didn't want to go there.
Well, I was one, and I think all three of the other committee members.
Not our structure.
It's something that would need to take a lot of time. You'd have to set the daily rate. If this had happened 6 months ago, we might be there. So I understand, and Glenn can. We have a motion on the floor. You can alter that and take your chances with this board to explain the per diem, your per diem idea. But the budget is passed. There are people that are actually attached to this budget, and it is not as simple as just having somebody's salary go from $25,000 to $22,000 and somebody else's, in a reduction like that. I think this board would be, I can't speak for the board, but going forward in analyzing what is used, I think you could have a different assessment next year, knowing what will happen with residencies, what might happen with licensing, what might happen with other things, but it is a big unknown. So I think that was why certainly I shied away from the per diem cost. Larry and Leon can speak for themselves, but I'm going to interject something here. One of the things that had been somewhat agreed upon was that the North Bennington Public Board, without having a school, was not going to use curriculum services. One of the reasons we have curriculum in the SVSU is that we want all of our students, with the same curriculum moving along when they hit the middle school, which is a union middle school, a union high school, to have the, similar experiences with the base curriculum taught, so that we are all on the same page throughout the supervisory union. Clearly, the independent school is not going to use that service. So what I had asked Rick to do, on my own, I will say, it was not discussed or voted on in the committee, but what you have in front of you in the top half is taking the, mind you, part of curriculum has administrators, professional development, it has other things in it, but likewise, there's other areas that might have things that you might not use. So if you were to take a look at this, at the curriculum line item, which is not really in front of you, it's embedded in the budget, at $640,000, and you extrapolated it out by taking North Bennington's portion of that out, you can see on the far right-hand column what that would do to the other districts in a very practical sense, in a black and white numbers sense. What I asked Glenn and Ray to come to this board with was more of a why, understanding that you're not going to use those services, but why is this so important right now for your district to have a reduction? And that's, to come to us to say, is there something you can do to help us out next year? I haven't heard that yet.
Well, the why is basically that, I think every board here believes that they should only pay for what they receive. Their taxpayers should only pay for what they receive.
Leon? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Ava's had her hand up, and since she's next to me, I don't see it.
You forget me. Okay. I would throw several thoughts out here, and I do not want to in any way be negative toward North Bennington, because quite frankly, I have personally been a strong supporter of your move forward. Okay. However, one, we do have a problem in timing here, in that, as everybody is well aware, aside from Bennington, and heaven help them if they have to go and ask their voters for even more money, the budgets for the next school year have already been set and approved. Now, however, I will 100% agree with you that we pay for services rendered, and that is what the voters intend for us to give to them. And in the future, if everything goes forward for North Bennington, you will not be using the full services of this board. Now, this has never happened to us before. However, knowing this coming in the future, I think it would only be proper that we would have to make an adjustment, not based on a per pupil cost, but based on the fact that you have no pupils. You are now a non-school district, but certain services need to be given to you on the administrative level. Okay. Now, that I think is going to take a little bit of thought in everyone's heads. A while, you know. But it can be done, and certainly I'm certain then with warning ahead of time that possibly at the central office a certain reduction could be made in duties and staff, etc. But okay. The other, I'm going to be very honest here, the other possibility is maybe you will need to leave the supervisory union, okay? And take your services. Financial services are fairly easy. Actually, you could still take them through the supervisory. A superintendent could be obtained who would only be a part-time superintendent for you for administrative duties. Now, I'm not saying this is the way you should go. I'd like to have you guys with us. But there is a little mind adjustment that needs to go on here, and you are going to be the odd guys out. And, you know, I'm not trying to be negative about that. I'm just trying to be practical.
So Catherine has her hand up, and there are some legal issues involved in that.
I appreciate, Avis, what you're saying and about timing and the assignment, but I think we have to make sure that we're all understanding that even though the Prudential Committee, who are the board of directors of the public North Bennington graded school district, are deciding whether or not to become a non-operating district, their students are still theirs. So they still have students that we report on in a myriad of ways, whether it's tuitioning to other schools, if they're a non-operating district, if it's reporting to the State Department on all of the different reporting modules that we have to do regarding those students. The school funding formula is affected, and also as far as the assignment to another supervisory union, that actually is the duty of the Secretary of Education. There can be a request of it, but they would be assigned to an existing one. I don't think they would be able, under the current structure, to create their own. Somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those two factors are factors to consider in your proposal, or your ideas.
Well,
Fran, and then Ray.
No, that's all right.
Well, I guess I'd have to ask Catherine or Rick, who would follow every student and tuitioning, and how's that going to be done?
Well, most of it would be done in the finance department. Rick can comment on those, because certainly the tuition paid out has to be tracked. There is a tuition agreement that's in effect with the village school, but they're all, parents will have choice, and I think that's one of the strongest arguments that you've had.
My point of the question is if, for the sake of argument, let's say they got the $50,000 reduction, somebody's cost is going to go up tracking all these things, programs, students, tuitioning, and all that stuff. So I don't know. I don't see where it. I think it's going to end up costing more. Maybe not. I might be all wrong here, but I don't think so.
Well, that's may I?
Right. Glenn?
Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting idea. I mean, you're right. I don't have any problem with the idea of paying for it.
You might have, say, 49 here. It's going to cost us another 50 over there, or 60. I don't know.
That's why they wanted the per diem.
No, that's a good question. And actually, Larry had brought something up similarly in our. That's what actually led me to the idea of doing a per diem thing, because I know it's not our structure, but I thought it might answer some of the questions people had concerns about. And yeah, you know what? If we did some type of a structure where it was a reduction, and then we agreed to making payments for time spent doing something that's unusual. Yeah, you know what? I suppose we could consider something like that. It's not part of the current motion, but.
So, Richard Bump, what is the motion on the floor? Sorry.
Well, we'd have to, it'd be our thing too.
He's searching. It can't be that many pages back. Too far back. Too far back.
Move to ask that the SVSU reduce the administrative assessment by 50% should it become a non-operating district for FY14 only. That would be a reduction from 99,000 to 50,000.
So, just to see where this goes, and then I would entertain another motion, or we can discuss something else. We can also, I don't know. I mean, do you feel you want to add something to this before we call this question?
Yeah, just one thing I'd like to add. Back to my original question, Rick, if the $50,000, roughly $50,000, what percent, do you have a handle, even roughly, what percent of the SU budget that is?
Oh, I can tell you here in a second.
Okay.
I'll give you an exact number.
So not changing anything else, just.
15 million.
We're just going to use a flat 50.
Sure. I mean, it'll certainly get us close enough to understand the context.
So for people watching, the SVSU total budget is $15,678,672.
1/3 of 1%.
1/3 of 1% of budgeted, not real money, budgeted money. I'm saying that doesn't necessarily have to be distributed out. I'm saying that could probably be managed within. That's all we're asking for.
I'm going to call the question, and I'm going to say again, I still haven't really heard the why, except the part about your not wanting to pay for services that you're not using.
I think.
What why are you looking for?
Well, I think that, people might have a compassionate side to this, and, everybody's human, but I'm not hearing it, but I'm going to call the question.
Well, I could answer that, yeah, actually, if you want. I think what you're working towards is one of our premises among this whole thing is to not go beyond, if we shift to a non-operating school, have the non-operating school budget not go beyond what our warned operating school budget is. So in other words, level funding. This certainly would be a step towards that. But and if that's how somebody wants to think about it, that's fine. But the impetus, if it was just, but we're not just asking for charity. The impetus for this is the fact that we feel that there are services within the SU that aren't going to be needed. There is potential savings or potential reallocation of resources within central office that could be better used somewhere else because we're not going to need them. I see a figure of about $50,000, or about half of what our assessment, or our administrative assessment is, as a reasonable approach to this, and it is 1/3 of 1% of your total budget. So yeah, if if you feel that you want to do this for the sense of helping us out with getting from a operating school budget to a non-operating school budget, that's wonderful. Thank you. But we're not asking for specifically for charity. We feel that this is worthwhile because it's a decreasing cost.
So I'm going to, and then I'm
Just-
going to call the question.
Just to let, I don't know if you realize this or not, but, you know, Bennington lost their budget, and we're up 19.6%. And George and I met with Rick, and we came up with $400,000 worth of SVSU cuts that would have been shared between everybody, but the BSD board members decided not to ask this board at this time to make those cuts. They're going to try and look at our own BSD budget and see if we can find enough cuts not to come here. But if we can't, we may be coming back next month ourselves asking for cuts, and everybody would share in those cuts as well. And I think the number that for North Bennington, it's a little bit over $14,000. It would be your personal savings if the cuts that we were looking for went through.
You do that, Powell will come the following month.
What?
Panel will come next month. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion to reduce the North Bennington assessment by $50,000? Raise their hand. You have that, Richard? All opposed? Motion failed. I'm going to ask one question and then we're going to move on and know that there is an April meeting. Just to look in front of you at the curriculum item. I mean, this is, again, this will add $6,000 to Bennington, $2,000 to Pownell, $1,000 to Shaftesbury, $198 to Woodford, to my friend here, and $13,000 to MAU, Leon. If somebody would like to make a motion to have the North Bennington assessment reduced by removing the curriculum assessment to them, I would entertain that motion. Otherwise, we're going to move on.
So moved.
I'll second. Sure.
So I'm just trying to see if...
Appreciate that.
So all of you around the table who represent your respective boards, this is in black and white.
With that saving of $165 to raise our six.
Do you see that, Ken? I mean, I want everyone to see what they have in front of them.
Raise our
From
six
that
more.
total curriculum line item.
Right, and the reality, if everyone can remember how that assessment sheet looks with 7 or 8 assessment streams.
Here.
I've got the handout, the overhead if you want.
Well,
Like so.
I mean, I think everyone's seen it 100 million times, so
Right.
hopefully it's somewhat familiar to you. What this would mean is we would pull out curriculum from the administrative stream. We would create its own assessment stream, similar to ELL Plus has its own stream. A couple of others have their own assessment stream. So that would have its own assessment stream, and similar to what we did for ELL Plus and technology in pulling it out of the non-operating assessments, we would do that same thing. So that's how that would look, and that's how it would act.
Okay, and on a philosophical level, I believe the curriculum is that important that it should actually have its own line, like finance, like special education, because it is what we do.
Well, actually, since you brought up finance, based on Act 153, finance should now be collapsed into administration, because that's, they say, is a required,
function of the SVSU.
it's a required function of the administration of the SVSU. I purposely left it out there because I knew it would be more advantageous to North Bennington to leave it that way instead of plopping it in there, because it's based on their
user.
It's based on their employee population, which is far less as a percentage of the SU than the 3.7 is. So,
You want the timeout chair, guys?
just since you took me on that side road, I figured I'd explain it.
So, does anybody have any questions?
Well, read down those assessments again.
Okay. So it would increase Bennington by $6,400. It would decrease North Bennington by $24,000. It would increase Pownell you have it in front of you,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
$2,066. It would increase Shaftesbury by $1,745, Woodford by $198. You must be really big up there. And Mount Anthony by $13,624. Okay. Any other questions?
Is this,
So
just one more,
what's the motion on the floor, Richard? You're looking at me.
No, I'm fine.
You're fine?
just one more time, this
Ken.
640,000 is a proposed, that's the budget right now for curriculum, is that what you're
Yes.
telling? Okay.
And that includes professional development, it includes materials, it includes administrative conferences, it includes teacher conferences, teacher reimbursement for courses, piloting programs, the MAP testing, all sorts of things like that, curriculum related.
That last column there is your increase over what you were originally assessed in the first column.
Or your total assessment.
So our increase wouldn't be 19.6, it would be even 20.
Not 9.9.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understood, but I'll move on since it's late.
He's got his
Well, no,
little
all he
doogie
means
there.
is the percentage goes up as adding the 6,000.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the current motion on the floor for reducing the curriculum column to the North Bennington, in the, whatever it said, Richard, the North Bennington assessment? 2? Opposed? Okay. Abstaining? 1. Okay, motion failed. All right, I'm sorry. So, we do have a meeting in April, if you can think of something else. Maybe Bennington will be back and asking for a reduction overall. So I'm going to skip over the committee updates.
May I ask a question
I'm sorry,
about that?
Ray.
If Bennington comes back and asks for a reduction, theoretically, hypothetically,
Yeah.
because I don't know that they will, are we going to be treated to the same demonstration here?
You mean Rick
I
giving
mean,
us?
if they ask for
What's a demonstration?
100,000, are we going to be treated to an analysis that shows us that we need to look for $2.7 million?
No, because
Savings?
because what they have proposed, at least what they proposed at their own board, and I could let them speak, is a reduction of positions within the SU that would impact everybody's assessment to the lower. So it wouldn't just be for Bennington. They wouldn't be coming for Bennington.
And that would be a modified budget that has to be voted on?
It would have to be voted on by this board, and the drawback to that, just so everyone's clear, is that the budget is already assessed into everybody else's budgets that passed, so there would be a fund balance at the end of the year, which would be realized in FY16. So that would, all be put on the table at that point. Are you both going to speak?
Go ahead.
But just to give you an idea what we were looking at, I think most of the numbers that we had were increases over last year. So basically it would be level funding the SVSU budget.
Yeah.
Like, tuition, we had some, and the PLUS program was up $200,000, so we'd still fund it level, but they'll cut the $207,000 off. And like I said before, the savings to North Bennington on this would be
I gave it to you.
14,000 something. There'd be no real cuts, it'd be just level funding.
Ken? Ken?
Yeah.
So, George, who's got
Yeah,
their
I
hand
was just going to say, I'm sure that Bennington School District will be coming back before the supervisory union to ask for some adjustments.
And I would say offhand that I would support them.
So I'm going to move to the consent agenda. I will say that I need a panel rep on the Personnel Committee. I'm wondering, Cindy, if you'll take Gudrun's spot?
Depends on what time you meet.
Okay, well, we'll work around your schedule. George, you're still going to be on the personnel committee?
I will.
So we need to meet, and I'll go over that under superintendent, under the superintendent's evaluation. So, this is a revised consent agenda, and unfortunately, there's a resignation on there that I'm very disappointed to see. It is from Milt. He's worked for us for almost 10 years, and he's done an incredible job keeping the technology going, and he's been offered another job somewhere, and I think this is our loss, and so the consent agenda includes the updated one includes his resignation letter, and he will be hard to replace. So somebody make a motion to accept the revised consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Third.
And are there any, Rick?
I just want to personally say, for me, he will be impossible to replace.
Well,
For all of us, so many ways.
Well, maybe we could do something about it. I don't know.
Unfortunately, no. He's got a great opportunity, and
Yeah.
it's good for him, and
It's a promotional
It's a
opportunity
great-
for him.
It's not a lateral move, it's an up move, right? So
That's correct.
I really wish him the best, too. So, is Frank still here? No. Any questions? Jim, what we do is we ask if there's any questions on the warrants or anything in the consent agenda packet. So, if there's no questions on anything in the consent agenda.
Or you have a retiree.
Oh, yes. Karen, how long has Nancy been here?
She has been here since 2001.
Oh, it seems like longer. She's done such a fabulous job.
I know, and it's going to be really, it's very sad for me to have her leave.
Another person that will be hard to replace.
You know, Nancy was an incredible person because she had 3 different certifications.
an
She was
SLP?
certified as an early interventionist, she was a speech pathologist, and she was an early childhood special educator. So, in our program, she offered this amazing skill and knowledge, but also this efficiency factor. So, we're really, really going to miss her. But we wish her well. It's time.
Her letter said she's going to explore other opportunities.
What's
so
SLP?
We wish her well. So is there, all in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
I think it's unanimous. Richard, did you note that one of the board members left, so that they're not on the consent agenda? Next is the personnel, and I'm just going to briefly say that Cindy and I will be going to each of your boards, if the board chairs will have us, to talk about the superintendent's evaluation. We will be following policy 2600, although we will not be following the timeline, because the timeline is June to, it's in here anyway, the body of the policy works. The timeline does not line up correctly. The statute talks about contracts being renewed by May 15th. Our own contract says by April 30th. The job description, all the things that we've talked about trying to line up need to have a little better alignment, which I'd like the personnel committee to take a look at. All of these things lining up, so we're not doing this every year or every other year trying to scramble. And Ken, I know you've asked year after year. What we'd like to do is come up with questions that line up with this policy, with the job description, with the statute, and ask the 2 representatives and the alternate to do the evaluation and get the input from your board, so that the SU board is the one evaluating the superintendent according to what the statute says our responsibility is.
Will we meet the deadline of the contract, though?
By the end of April, yes. So what I'm hoping to do is, with Cindy's help, do this it's by April 30th, and the next meeting is the 24th.
And our meeting's on the 3rd. BSD, April 3rd.
Yeah, that's around the corner. All right, so we'll work over the weekend. So that's my update. and then the superintendent's report, and then we have a number of executive session items.
I'll forgo my report. We need to get into executive session.
So we'll be going into executive session for personnel, student, contract, and
legal.
And legal. Richard, we will, if you could wait around, one of the items will be quick, and we'll make a motion. So can we have a motion to go into executive, oh, sorry, Fran. Other?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to say, I promised that I would bring this out earlier. We're going to have teacher negotiations start probably the end of this year. So I'm asking, everybody thinks about doing it in open session, so we don't go through the fiasco we did the last time.
That is
And I'll
something
keep
we
asking
propose.
it every month, so
Okay.
people, it's in their...
I would be remiss if I didn't remind people that on April 9th, is that the date again?
Yes.
April
Tuesday.
9th is the new board member orientation put on by the VSBA. The SVSU one will be after that, before April 24th and after April 9th. So Jim, Holly, anybody who is available, they encourage board chairs to go along with any new members or one-year-old members, and anyone is welcome at 5 o'clock.
Where's it going to be held?
At the
CDC.
I have a place yet, I don't know. Probably will be at the CDC meeting room.
CDC.
Yeah, it was there last year.
So, are there any others? All right, motion to go into executive.
Second it.
All in favor? Catherine, which room are we going to go to?
I think we're in the teacher's room because we have Claude, will you